Welcome back to the Many Toys of, the show in which we go over the action figure history of various Transformers characters, and can you believe that we've done this 50 weeks in a row? This is episode 50, 50 weeks uninterrupted, every Friday, new episode of Many Toys of, and to celebrate that number, I think it's time we talk about the original Transformer, Sunstreaker. Before we begin, a big thank you to Chustifer5018, Protomaster DLN0000, Squidster491, Frederick Bear the Nightmarish, Black Wolf 7, Rain Craven, Mo Groovy Jake, BWJSDJS1010, It's Charlie Young, Elijah Stacks, RF7LQ, Vix the Kitsune, and I'm so sorry, I'm doing my best to enunciate this, Arsenage of Vasil EV18. That's what YouTube and Google gave me when I attempted to translate that, so I hope I did well. But thank all of you so much for recommending the narcissist of the 84 cast. Sunstreaker is an odd one. Don't get me wrong, he is a member of the 84 cast, he has a lot of prestige within Transformers, but in the G1 cartoon, he never had a proper spotlight episode. The closest he had was maybe Hoist Goes Hollywood, and even then, that was a spotlight episode for Hoist more than him. You know the basics of Sunstreaker. He is totally in love with himself. He thinks he is the single greatest creation of Primus, absolutely beautiful, perfect down to the very last strut. But that's about it. And there are other famous narcissists within G1 Transformers. Powerglide has an ego, but that's because he was the most capable flyer the Autobots had. Trax had an ego, but Trax was so over the top and hammy that it came off as more endearing than anything else. Sunstreaker is weirdly enough a bit reined in with his narcissism. It's not as exaggerated as you might think, especially from the G1 cartoon. And when it does pop up, it comes off more like he's a bit whiny as opposed to in love with himself. The G1 Marvel comic also didn't do much with Sunstreaker. He was a favorite of the UK writers, but in the US run, the proper canon run, there's just not much to go off of. We know that he is brothers with Sideswipe. We know that he's one of the few actual warriors amongst the Autobots alongside Sideswipe and Jazz. He's clearly capable in a fight. Him and Sideswipe break out their jet judo more often than not. But that's about it. It's strange that he has a massive cult of personality, people who absolutely adore Sunstreaker and follow everything he's in, but it's arguable that he didn't have much of a proper storyline or character until IDW took a stab at him. Under Simon Furman, he became the main partner of Hunter O'Neill, and it was great to see Sunstreaker taken out of his comfort zone, made into a headmaster, and then after that, made into a traitor. He spent the later half of IDW 1.0 just trying to atone for his sins. He had an amazing run in the Optimus Prime comic, especially the issue in which he had to take Sideswipe off life support. Sunstreaker always had this potential in him to be a great character, but we never saw it. It took nearly 35 years for us to get to the heart of what this narcissist was. So why did we like him so much before that? Well, why don't we pop back to 1984 to check Sunstreaker's credentials. His original G1 toy is a work of art. I want you to remember this. This was the first ever transforming robot made by Takara Tomy in their Diaclone line. This is the first Transformer. And he's beautiful. Yes, his proportions are a bit strange. He looks more like SpongeBob than an Autobot nowadays, but for the time, this is wonderful in terms of proportions. His legs are separated, his arms are articulated, he has a beautiful head sculpt, one that puts the other G1 Autobots to shame. He has a great gimmick in which he can launch his fists or included missiles, and when you transform him, he has a beautiful car mode with wonderful silver intakes and hubcaps. The yellow, by the way, is incredible. Yes, Bumblebee was also yellow, but Sunstreaker's yellow is a little bit darker, closer to gold. I think he has a beautiful car mode to go with his beautiful robot mode, and it's only fitting that someone who's so obsessed with appearances would have such a striking toy design. It amazes me that Takara Tomy was able to accomplish all this with their first ever attempt at a transforming robot. Going into 1985, Sunstreaker would be released once again, this time with the rub sign. In Takara Tomy markets, Sunstreaker would only be released in a multi-pack alongside Skids and Buzzsaw. These three were never released on their own in Japan during the G1 reign. However, you could also get a second version of him this year in the Cybertron Hero Collection 22 multi-pack. To bring 85 to a close, there was the Transformers Block Sunstreaker. This is a small, monochrome model kit that gives you a transforming Sunstreaker. In 1986, the wheels fell off. Sunstreaker was pulled from store shelves alongside many other Year 1 robots. To get Sunstreaker after that, you would have to use the Digital Doom on the Highway to Destruction flyer. He would cost $8 and 2 robot points. This was the final chance anyone would have had to get a G1 Sunstreaker in the United States. In 1987, the miniature of Sunstreaker from the Hero Pack would be released as the Decoy Sunstreaker in Hasbro markets. In 1990, there was the Transformers Classic Sunstreaker, a European exclusive reissue of the G1 Sunstreaker mold. This was the last release of that mold. Sunstreaker made no appearance in the Beast era, and it took until 2003 for the name to even be used again. But before we get to that, I do want to take a second to explain the oddity of the G1 Sunstreaker mold. Despite its historic importance, it does not exist anymore. We do not know why it doesn't exist. Hasbro and Takara have been very coy about it, but the explanation is that either it's been destroyed or the mold was lost during international shipment. Both of these are very likely. You must remember that when these toys were made in the 80s, there was no thought of them being collectible. There was no concept that there would be a 40th anniversary of Transformers. It would be considered a massive success if the toy line lasted 4 years, let alone 40. But it does mean that a character and a toy that went on to inspire so much of Transformers, one that is just as important to the identity of this toy line as an Optimus Prime or a Soundwave, has been lost. Even still, it's not like Sunstreaker would never have a toy ever again. Come 2003, he'd be released in the Universe line as a retool of the 2001 Robots in Disguise Prowl. I like this toy a lot. Both him and Sideswipe shared a mold for the first time ever, and it was cool to see the Lambros share a body. They had always shared an alt mode, but they never shared a proper robot mode design. Come 2005, Alternators had taken the world by storm, which is how we got the Binaltech Asterisk Sunstreaker. This is the Japanese release of this mold, and I do not like it. They attempted to go for full cartoon accuracy with the deco, and I think that actually hurt what was already a very compromised toy. The Sideswipe mold simply wasn't the best for Alternators. In fact, most would rank it as the worst mold of the entire toy line. Very complicated with the transformation, a great deal of kibble in the robot mode, very odd proportions, and a general lack of polish and fun. Alternators was an ambitious toy line. When it succeeded, it was spectacular. When it stumbled, though, it was very difficult to swallow that pill. Sunstreaker was great to have in the line. It was nice to see him be properly respected for how important of a character he was. But this Takara Tomy version, this just ain't it. The Alternators Sunstreaker, the US release, is actually a touch better in my opinion. It included more silver, gave red to the design. Yes, it was more accurate to the toy, which was the intention, but the addition of extra black to the car and the robot mode also gives this mold a little bit more variety. It feels like this is more like Sunstreaker. It's a bit more poppy, a little bit more interesting. It stands out more, you know? 2008 would be a pretty big year for Sunstreaker. Starting out small, there was the Robot Heroes Sunstreaker, who was just adorable. Arguably, the greatest Sunstreaker toy of all time is the Universe 2008 Sunstreaker. Based heavily on the IDW design at the time, you have a modernized car mode with a wonderful looking robot mode. And what's really interesting is that this Sunstreaker and the Sideswipe that came after share a mold, but Sunstreaker uses the front of the body, whereas Sideswipe flips it so Sunstreaker's back becomes his front. It was a beautiful retool, and it makes this one of the most versatile molds in all of Transformers. Believe it or not, the Henkei Sunstreaker was even better. Takara Tomy took what was already a great mold but gave it a better paint scheme, and I would argue a better yellow, making for one of the most beautiful Sunstreakers of all time. 2014 might be the single year that had the most Sunstreaker releases ever, but admittedly, it was mostly a lot of small guys and Chotskis. For instance, you had the Microchanger Sunstreaker from Creo, which is a very strange bot. I do not know why he looks like Wheeljack. The Creon class of 1984 Sunstreaker is even weirder. Why does he look like that? Hey, at least Loyal Subjects gave us a pretty cool looking Sunstreaker. The Sunstreaker Diaclone Edition, though, really isn't a Sunstreaker. Come on, that's Cordon. As odd as it may sound, we're actually a pretty long way into the list of Sunstreakers at this point. He's not had the most toys of any character ever, but even still, this seems rather shallow. Maybe we should hop over to Third Party and see what they've done with this guy. The first third-party Sunstreaker I remember seeing was the Iron Factory Racing Bros. These are two Legend Scale Lamb Bros, and they look great. They have a shared transformation scheme, but the robot modes and bodies are almost entirely different. And I do love the fact that we got the two of them together. It feels wrong to have a side swipe without Sunstreaker. Hell, Iron Factory must really like Sunstreaker, because they're actually doing one of their samurai figures in a Sunstreaker style, making for a very unique boy who also has a whole lot of IDW flavoring to him. Probably the most well-known and celebrated third-party Sunstreaker would be the Bad Cube Sun Surge. For a very long time, this was the only Masterpiece scaled Sunstreaker on the market, and it was good. It had some QC issues and the transformation was more than a little bit complicated, but the articulation was spectacular, the sculpting was beautiful, and the paint was wonderful. This was a great Sunstreaker, and for many, still the Sunstreaker they have on their Masterpiece shelf. A Masterpiece Sunstreaker I'm not all that familiar with is the Omnigonix Spinout. I won't lie, at first I thought that this was a knockoff of the Masterpiece Sunstreaker, but I don't believe it is. It is a more toy-accurate take on Sunstreaker though, and I quite like it for that. It's not necessarily a toy I need, but I appreciate the fact that they're at least trying to recreate that toy design because it is so separate and so unique from the cartoon. But of course, I think the third-party Sunstreaker on everyone's minds right now is the New Age William. This is the best looking Sunstreaker robot mode I've ever seen, and yes, I am including masterpieces in that. It boggles my mind that a toy this good looking is Legend Scale. And also, his name is William. That is the best name I've ever heard for Sunstreaker. It fits him to a T. I would love to hear Sideswipe calling him Bill just to annoy him. And that's a wrap on Third Party Roundup. This is so strange to me. Like, I understand that Hasbro and Takara might not do many Sunstreakers, but why hasn't Third Party touched him that often? Like, surely he should have a prestige to him. There should be a sense of accolade and accomplishment to working on Sunstreaker. Why isn't anybody touching him? Come 2015, we'd get a very interesting Sunstreaker. He was included in Combiner Wars. For the first time ever, Sunstreaker wasn't just himself, but he was also a part of a larger being. And by that I mean he could turn to an arm or a leg. The head sculpt here is great, one of my favorite Sunstreaker head sculpts. But the body is rough. Don't get me wrong, I understand. Breakdown also turns into a Lamborghini, why not roll Sunstreaker into this? But here's where I'd point out that if you want to do the whole masquerade thing, that was Sideswipe that took over for Breakdown. And also, I don't know, man. Sunstreaker isn't this blocky. They tried their best to sculpt this body into looking more like Sunstreaker, but it just doesn't really click with me. It doesn't help that Breakdown is one of the weakest molds from Combiner Wars. This just feels like insult to injury at that point. However, the most important Sunstreaker of 2015 was the Q-Transformer Sunstreaker! Oh my god, look at him! Look at him with his car mode! Look at him, this car mode that's actually far more accurate to the initial decar, even though I actually said drift was the initial decar. However, Slickbuster in the YouTube comments actually told me that the initial decar is actually more like Sunstreaker than it was drift. Thank you so much for telling me that. That's very interesting, and I told you you'd be in the mini toys of Sunstreaker, and now you're here. Thank you, Slickbuster. Oh, Slickbuster. Oh, thank you for telling me about Sunstreaker. Sunstreaker's so cute. Oh, that voice hurts. 2016 was a bit weird. We only got Sunstreaker in the Unite Warriors Convoy Grand Prime set, and I mean, it's a lot better looking than Combiner Wars Sunstreaker, but the mold is still a little bit iffy. 2017 gave us what might be the best masterpiece of all time, at least from Takara Tomy. Masterpiece Sunstreaker was incredible, heavily cartoon accurate, with a transformation that was insane, but still intuitive. The articulation is actually similar to a Figma. It's buttery, smooth, and it does exactly what you want it to do, while not ever making it feel like you're too fragile or there's a chance of it breaking. He even comes with a little chip chase, which is incredibly nice. He has the little mask from Hoist Goes Hollywood, his gun is good, I love the alternate faces. This was at the time in which Masterpiece was first truly investing in the idea of going full cartoon accurate, but before they had some of the horror stories like Hound. So Sunstreaker got to reap all the rewards of a Masterpiece Megatron without having to deal with any of the strange imperfections and peculiarities that would have come later on. In some ways, you can almost consider him the last of the golden age of Masterpiece. Sunstreaker would take a few years off after that before showing back up in Earthrise, and this toy breaks my heart. You can even see it in the stock photos, the problem this Sunstreaker has. The transformation is perfect. The proportions are wonderful. In terms of a robot mode, a vehicle mode, a sculpt, a transformation scheme, this is one of the best toys Generations has ever done. However, they gave him a translucent plastic chest so that he could have a windshield, and they didn't match the yellow correctly. So you have a very different yellow only in his torso. It's enough to annoy you. I try not to nitpick, but when this toy was so close to being perfect, just to have that very weird, greasy slob of a different yellow, it really does break my heart. This should have been Sunstreaker's greatest toy ever. Instead, it's just another very good one. In 2022, Sunstreaker would be in the Jada Toys Transformers Series 1 18-pack. He was here alongside Sideswipe, which is nice. I'm going to be real with you guys. I think 2024 did a whole lot to help Sunstreaker's image within the fandom. Just starting off with what was his most mundane release, we totally redeemed the Earthrise Sunstreaker. He was now in the Generation Selects Autobots Stand United 5-pack, and he used opaque plastic, meaning that the colors could match now. But even better, they totally redid his deco, giving him a far darker yellow that pops so much better. This toy is the best Generation Sunstreaker, and I would go so far as to say it is the best toy Sunstreaker has ever had, in my opinion. I adore this Sunstreaker, and I kick myself every day for not getting this 5-pack when I could have, because you would get 4 other amazing figures alongside this Sunstreaker, but honestly, Streaker alone was worth the price of admission. Pop into Studio Series, we got the Bumblebee Movie Concept Series Sunstreaker, which is an incredible toy. Yes, this Sunstreaker was never in the movie, and in all honesty, I don't think this was actually concept art. I think they just made a really cool design for Sunstreaker and put Concept Series as a way to justify it. However, he is absolutely wonderful. I love that he has these big shoulder pads. He looks like a quarterback. And I could see Sunstreaker having a little bit of a high school jock mentality. It makes sense for him. His transformation's incredible. His vehicle mode is really slick. The paint and colors on him are great throughout. I go so far as to say that this Sunstreaker is right up there with Brawn and RC as some of the best deluxes that Studio Series ever did, and it helps cement the Bumblebee movie line within Studio Series as the best subgroup of the entire Studio Series toy line to me. Just to put a perfect little bow on this great year for Sunstreaker, 2024, we got the earliest releases of the Blockies Sunstreaker. Simple, but effective. Blockies knocks it out of the park every single time, and Sunstreaker looks incredible. one of the best miniature versions of the character to date, and a very fun build on top of that. That brings us to our current year of 2025, and just over the horizon, Missing Link Sunstreaker. This is a modern recreation of the original G1 toy, with new articulation and a few new accessories. Is this the perfect recreation of G1 Sunstreaker? No, it's modified and changed. However, I think what's important here is that this is going to be a way for fans all over the world to finally experience what might be the single most important transforming toy of them all, the original Sunstreaker. You've not had that experience since 1990. For nearly 40 years now, there's not been a way to get this toy that wasn't outrageously expensive or a bootleg. And that's it. You know, looking at all these Sunstreakers back to back, the thing that amazes me the most is he's not had much. Despite being popular, and more importantly to me, despite being the first Transformer, there's just not a lot of Sunstreakers out there. He doesn't show up in other media that often. Even when he does, it's very rare for him to get toys in that new media. Seriously, aside from that Bumblebee movie studio series Sunstreaker, every toy of Sunstreaker ever has just been the G1 design. So why is it that he's important to us? He had a great character, he had a good voice actor, but you're describing basically every character in the G1 cartoon. Why is he unique? And I come to realize maybe he doesn't have to be unique or special to still be a favorite of people. It could just be as simple as someone grew up with his toy, or someone loved yellow cars, or maybe they knew someone who did a really good Sunstreaker impression and that made him a favorite. Sometimes you don't have to have logic or reason for a character to be important. But let's also not undersell Sunstreaker. He is important. The first Transformer ever. The one that built all of this. Without Sunstreaker, there is no Optimus Prime. There is no Megatron. There is no Soundwave or Starscream or Bumblebee. No one. All of this franchise is built on a foundation that is propped up by that original Diaclone Lamborghini. And it reminds me of a comment I got from Mr. Metal back when I did my G1 Sunstreaker toy review, which was essentially Rhydon from Pokemon and Sunstreaker from Transformers are very similar. For anyone who doesn't know, Rhydon was the first Pokemon designed, which is weird when you think about it because Rhydon isn't unique or special. The most spotlight he's ever had is probably the fact that he's the Ace of Giovanni in the original Gen 1 games, and that's such a minor thing to hang your hat on, but Rhydon's important because he was the first monster. Every monster that has come since him has his DNA in it somewhere. Every Pokemon from Charizard all the way to Skeledirge has a little bit of Rhydon in them somewhere. Sunstreaker is similar. No Sunstreaker means no Windblade, no Terrorsaur, no Chromia, or Vector Sigma, or Skywarp, or Slipstream, or Breakdown, or the Viacons, no Alchemist Prime or Solus Prime, no Shatter or Dropkick. Every character you like, every toy you like, be it a major character or a minor character, be it someone who has 1,000 toys like Devastator, or someone who has one toy like Wild Will. None of them exist without Sunstreaker. He was the one who planted the acorn, the one that grew into the oak. And maybe that's all Sunstreaker needs. Maybe he doesn't need 1 million appearances in fiction. Maybe he doesn't need a new toy every single year. His legacy is concrete. There is no getting around the fact, there is no taking away from the fact that Sunstreaker was the first. Sunstreaker's doing really well for himself. He doesn't have to be the biggest name. He doesn't have to be in the Michael Bay movies. He doesn't have to show up on a toy line every single week. He doesn't have to be as popular as a Bumblebee, or a Ratchet, or a Cliffjumper, or a Blaster, or a Perceptor. He's okay just being him. And maybe we could all just be okay being who we are. I want to thank all of you so much for sticking with me for 50 episodes. We're going to keep up momentum. Next week, hopefully, is going to be Nemesis Prime. But until then, guys, we're just going to have to see what we get up to next time.